I have just returned from a visit to the Führer's headquarters. I have heard all the reports and accounts of the eyewitnesses. I have inspected the room where the attack took place, and can only say that if the rescue of the Führer from mortal danger was not a miracle, then there are no miracles left at all. The would-be assassin gained access to the daily briefing by one of the arrested generals. He took the explosives to the storage room in a briefcase, and under the pretense of wanting to set them down, pushed them directly in front of the Führer's feet in an unguarded moment. Colonel General Günther Korten, who stood directly behind the Führer, was severely wounded in the assassination attempt and succumbed to his injuries on Saturday. Participants in the meeting were thrown several meters through the window and their uniforms torn to shreds. Throughout the entire room, there was an enormous blast wave caused by the explosion. Only one location remained relatively untouched, and that was where the Führer was seated at the table. The table itself was thrown from the room by the explosion, but the Führer was entirely unharmed, except for minor bruises, burns, and scratches on his forehead. I don't hesitate to admit that I am a believer in history. That is, I believe that history has a meaning and a sometimes only belatedly understandable logic. This also makes me immune to the danger of doubting, even if only occasionally, that despite all the obstacles, we will still be victorious in this war in the end. My belief in the profound meaning of history was on July 20th given a renewed confirmation. I am firmly convinced that fate shielded the Führer in this tragic hour because it wants to keep him ready for a great future. I believe that our people as a whole are also of the same conviction. How else would it be possible that such a dark day for our people could give such a tremendous boost? The enemy newspapers were still writing 2 days after July 20th because stirring would slowly run out of ammunition, and there was a risk that they would have to surrender soon, about which the Berlin population would be very sad. Meanwhile, in Berlin and throughout the entire Reich, there was a million-voiced prayer of thanks ascending to the Almighty that he had protected the leader and preserved him for his people. They won't understand this outside in the world, and that's why they consistently misjudge us. They won't understand this in the outside world, and that's why they consistently misjudge us. That the treacherous Camarilla did the same is further proof that they completely misjudged our people and had no inner relationships with him at all. To think that at some point the Führer would abandon us would be downright absurd. The 20th of July represents the opposite of a sign of moral decay of our people. From many thousands of letters, I have learned that countless people who did not know each other personally at all embraced on the streets and in public transport when they heard that the Führer was unharmed in the assassination attempt. No one has concluded from his miraculous salvation that we should now slack off in our war efforts. All accept that we should perceive this day as a sign of destiny. And this brings me to the conclusion that we must draw from the events that lie behind us. We stand on the front lines of a world of hateful enemies, which, as the events of July 20th once again prove, have no means of, and even if it is the most treacherous and meanest scorn, to bring us down. The leader is true in this battle, that night against death and the devil. We have to go through this hell of resistance, burdens, and dangers before we can reach the end of the path and regain freedom and breathe clear air again. There can be no doubt that we will succeed. We must succeed, otherwise we are all lost.